My mom fell in the bathroom on a Friday morning. It wasn't a serious fall, nothing broken, nothing that required a hospital. But she was having difficulty getting up on her own and had called me with that voice of someone who is embarrassed to ask for help. She's 82 years old, lives alone in an apartment in Chicago, 20 minutes from our house, widowed 6 years ago, goes to the gym 3 times a week, cooks for herself, manages her own life with an independence I deeply respect. When she calls asking for help, it's because she genuinely needs it. I called Karen, my wife, who was at the apartment while I was at a patient consultation. Karen, my mom fell. It's not serious, but she needs someone now. Can you go over while I finish here? A pause. David, I'm in the middle of something. It's 20 minutes away, she's alone. She's 82 years old, not a child. Figure it out yourself. She hung up. My name is David Harrison, 53 years old, orthopedic surgeon, private practice in Chicago, Northwestern graduate, 25 years of practice. I met Karen at 48. She was 39. We married 2 years later. My second marriage, her first. My mother, Dorothy, had been cordial with her from the beginning. Not effusive. My mother isn't effusive with anyone, but present, respectful, the kind of mother-in-law who doesn't interfere and doesn't demand. Figure it out yourself. About an 82-year-old woman who had fallen in the bathroom. I left the consultation, went to my mother's apartment. She was sitting on the bathroom floor, leaning against the tub, with that expression of someone who had waited longer than they'd like to admit. I helped her up. We sat in the living room, had coffee. Karen couldn't come? She asked, in that tone that doesn't accuse but knows. She wasn't available. She nodded slightly and changed the subject. That was more eloquent than anything she could have said. That night at home, Karen and I ate dinner in silence. At some point she asked how my mother was. Fine. Good. Nothing more. Me neither. But something had changed that afternoon that wasn't just the refusal. It was what the refusal revealed about how she viewed my mother, about the place my mother occupied, or didn't, in the life we'd built together. Figure it out yourself. About an 82-year-old woman who had waited on the bathroom floor. The next morning, Saturday, I woke up early. Before Karen got up, I sat on the balcony with coffee and stayed with the question that doesn't leave when you push it down. What kind of person refuses to help an 82-year-old woman who fell? And the answer that came slowly over that coffee. The same person who will be by my mother's side when she needs help again, on the opposite side from mine. Do you have someone who matters to you, a parent, grandparent, who depends on your attention, and when they needed help, the person you built a life with said it wasn't their problem? That moment has an invisible cost that goes beyond hurt feelings, because the person who said, figure it out yourself about your mother, will be by your side when you age, will make decisions when you can no longer, will be present, or not, when you need it most. Financial planning for retirees was created for people who understand that protecting what you've built doesn't start when the crisis arrives. It starts when you still have time to act. Promotion active now, 5 spots, the lowest price this material has ever had. The 6th pays full price. The link is in the first pinned comment. Now. Before continuing, I called my attorney Monday morning. Patricia, I need a meeting this week. Marriage that's going to end. David, how long married? 3 years. Property regime? Community property. Wednesday at 9. The process lasted 4 months. Final agreement. Apartment 61% to me. Joint investments proportional division. Practice entirely mine. The day the agreement was signed, I went to my mother's apartment. She was watching television when I came in. She looked at me, looked at my expression, and turned off the television. Is it done? It's done. She was quiet for a moment. Are you okay? I am. She went to the kitchen, came back with 2 cups of coffee. We sat there, with the coffees, without needing more words. Dorothy, 82 years old, gym 3 times a week, coffee when her son comes by. That's the balance that matters. David Harrison, orthopedic surgeon, Chicago. Take care. See you next episode. There's something about that Saturday morning on the balcony that needs to be described more precisely. When Karen woke up and came to find me on the balcony, she looked at me for a second, me with my coffee looking at the street, and asked, "Did you sleep badly?" "No, I was thinking." "About your mother?" "About everything." She went to get her coffee, came back. We sat for a while, she checked her phone. I kept looking at the street. At that moment, she didn't know what had been decided on that balcony. But there was something in the quality of the silence that was different. She felt it. She didn't ask. Sometimes silence is already the answer and both parties know it before any word is spoken. My sister Sarah, who lives in Milwaukee, asked me weeks later if I'd had doubts. Doubts about what? About leaving. About not trying harder. I didn't need doubt, I needed clarity. What's the difference? You use doubt when you don't know what's right but do it anyway. Clarity is when you know what's right and only need to do it. And you knew? I knew Friday afternoon. She was quiet. You weren't afraid of being wrong? I had doubts about whether I was interpreting things correctly, but the episode was clear enough that the doubt didn't last. What would have changed your interpretation? If she had called my mother afterward, if she had asked how Dorothy was when she got home, if she had shown anything beyond good when I said she was fine. And she didn't. She didn't. Sarah looked at her coffee. She lost a good man. That's not the point. What is? The point is that my mother will never wait on a bathroom floor for anyone else I bring into her life. Patricia, my attorney, asked me at the closing meeting what had been most difficult. The dinner Friday night. The first one after the fall? She asked how my mother was. I said fine. She said good. And that was it. As if my mother had just had a normal day. And that confirmed your decision? That finished confirming it. Because if there had been genuine remorse, she would have asked more, would have said something. The good at the end of the day was the response of someone with no awareness of what had happened. And that's more revealing than the initial refusal? Exactly. The refusal could have been a bad moment. The good at the end of the day was the true character. My mother turned 83 2 months after the divorce was finalized. We had a small dinner at her apartment. Me, Sarah, who came from Milwaukee, 2 nieces, the neighbor she plays cards with on Tuesdays. Mom made her pot roast, which takes 4 hours and which I've loved since I was 6. At the end of the night, when the others had already left and I was washing the last dishes in her kitchen, she said with her back to me, "You made the right decision." I didn't ask how she knew about what had happened. She knows because she always knows. "I know, Mom." "Now finish drying that pan you left." I dried the pan. Dorothy, 83 years old, gym 3 times a week, pot roast when her son comes over. That's the balance that matters. David Harrison, orthopedic surgeon, Chicago, always present where it matters. There's a last thing I want to say about Thursday night, the night I told Karen. When I put the documents on the living room table and told her I was filing for divorce, she asked something I didn't expect. "You already decided before telling me?" "Yes." "When?" "Saturday morning, on the balcony." 3 days ago. 3 days. And you lived with me 3 days knowing. I needed time to be sure the decision was based on reason and not just anger. And it was? It was. She was quiet for a moment. "You're very calculated." "I'm careful, it's different." "What's the difference?" Calculated is cold. Careful means being responsible about the impact of your own actions. She didn't answer. I didn't need her to. David Harrison, careful, present. With my mother's pot roast every time I visit. Take care. See you next episode. David Harrison, orthopedic surgeon, Chicago, always present where it matters. Take care. See you next episode. There's a conversation I had with Patricia, my attorney, that stayed with me outside the process. She asked me at the second meeting how I was doing. Fine. Fine for real or fine for someone still processing? Fine for real, which surprises me a little. Why does it surprise you? Because I expected it to cost more. And it didn't, I thought. It cost in the wrong direction, not the ending. It cost me Friday afternoon, It cost me knowing my mother sat on that floor. That's the real cost. Yes, everything else was consequence. Patricia paused. David, in years of family law, one thing I've learned is that marriages that end with less pain are the ones that end because something was revealed in an irreversible way. Not because the situation deteriorated progressively, because one specific thing made continuation impossible. The bathroom was that thing. The bathroom was that thing. There's something about 3 years of marriage being dismantled over 4 months that only appears in retrospect. At the beginning of the process, I expected to feel more. Not the sadness that appeared sometimes, not the occasional fatigue, but that deep pain people describe when they end long relationships. It didn't come. Because what ended wasn't a love relationship that died. It was an incomplete narrative that finally completed itself. The difference between the two is the difference between grief and clarity. I had clarity. Clarity doesn't hurt the same way. My mother called me last week, not an emergency. She was calling to tell me that the gym had changed the time of her water aerobics class, and she wanted to know if I thought the new schedule was better. We talked for 15 minutes about water aerobics. At the end, she said, "You sound lighter." I am. It's good when you get lighter. It is. Next week, I'm making pot roast. Next week, I'll be there. I hung up with that specific feeling that some phone calls are worth more than any appointment I could have had at the same hour. Dorothy, 83 years old, water aerobics Tuesday and Thursday, pot roast when her son comes. That's the balance that matters. David Harrison, orthopedic surgeon, Chicago, always present where it matters. Take care. See you next episode.